folks, I want you to think about something for just a moment. The Islamic Republic of Iran, a regime that has been chanting death to America since before some of you were born, just let a 60-day deadline pass. No deal, no agreement, nothing. And now Donald Trump, the 47th President of the United States, sitting in the Oval Office, has looked at the Ayatollahs and said, raise the white flag or face the consequences. Now, the drive-by media, our friends in the press, they're clutching their pearls. They're fanning themselves. They've got the vapors. Oh, Trump's being reckless. Oh, Trump's being a bully. Oh, this is going to destabilize the region. And I'm sitting here in the Attila the Hun chair behind the golden EIP microphone thinking, when has that ever not been their reaction? When Nixon went to China, reckless. When Reagan called the Soviet Union an evil empire, destabilizing. When we went and actually did something about Saddam Hussein, well, actually they loved that one less than 5 minutes before they hated it. But you get the idea. Meanwhile, Iran has been squeezing the Strait of Hormuz like they own it, like it belongs to them. Like a waterway through which about a fifth of the world's oil flows is somehow their personal toll booth. And the 60-day ceasefire expired. The deadline came, the deadline went, and the mullahs thought, what? That nobody was watching? That America would blink? Well, my friends, I've got news for the Ayatollah and his turbaned crew of America-hating, terror-exporting, people-hanging maniacs in Tehran. This is not the Obama administration. This is not the administration that wired them $150 billion in the dead of night and called it a diplomatic achievement. I'm Rick LeBeau, this is Rush Hour, and we are just getting started. All right, my friends, let's get into this Iran situation because it deserves the full treatment. So here's where we are. The 60-day ceasefire, which was supposed to be the window for a negotiated agreement over the Strait of Hormuz, is over, done. The clock ran out. And the Iranian regime, in all its wisdom, decided they were going to play games right up until the final buzzer. No deal materialized. And President Trump responded by calling for, and this is his language, and I love it, a white flag of surrender. And he threatened to bomb Oman. Now, look, that's a sentence that would have given a State Department career diplomat a full cardiac episode just a few years ago. Bomb Oman? Oh, my goodness. Rick, that's so extreme. That's so destabilizing. Think of the diplomatic implications. Think of the partners and the allies and the multilateral frameworks and the international norms. And here I am thinking, good. Because let me tell you what the alternative has looked like for the better part of 5 decades. The alternative has been appease Iran, negotiate with Iran, give Iran a little more, give Iran a little breathing room. Don't provoke Iran. Don't say anything that might upset them. Let them have a nuclear program, just a civilian one, they promise. Let them fund Hezbollah. Let them fund Hamas. Let them prop up whatever Shia militia is blowing up American soldiers this week. But whatever you do, don't say anything that sounds aggressive. And you know what we got for 50 years of that approach? We got a regime that has executed its own people for protesting, including a man named Shaharm Sadeghi, executed just last Sunday, a man they convicted of driving his car. Driving his car. That's it. 38 years after the mass executions of 1988, they are still hanging people in the streets to keep the population scared. And our supposed brilliant foreign policy establishment has spent half a century trying to find a way to make these people our partners. You cannot partner with a regime whose entire legitimacy rests on hating you. That is the thing the globalists and the diplomats and the foreign policy sophisticates will never understand. The Ayatollahs need America to be the enemy. It is the foundation of their power. It is what holds the whole rotten structure together. The moment Iran is at peace with America, the Iranian people start asking very uncomfortable questions, like why they live like this while their oil money vanishes into the pockets of the Revolutionary Guard. So every time we extend a hand, they don't shake it. They use it to buy time. Every agreement, every framework, every deal, it's just the clock being reset so they can continue enriching uranium and funding terror and threatening shipping lanes while Washington pats itself on the back for keeping the door to diplomacy open. Well, the door is a little less open now, and I, for one, find that refreshing. Now, I want to address something, because there's an article floating around from the Washington Examiner about the so-called Mecca Agreement, about how the Middle East is, in the words of the headline, building its own NATO and signing America's exit ticket. The argument being that Middle Eastern nations are developing enough regional self-reliance that America is being pushed out. And some people on our side, good, well-meaning people, read that and think, great, we're finally getting out. We don't have to be the world's policeman anymore. And look, I am sympathetic to that sentiment. I really am. The men and women of this country's armed forces are not an infinite resource. Our treasure is not infinite. There is a legitimate America First argument for letting other people handle their own neighborhood. But here's the thing. The Strait of Hormuz is not just their neighborhood. That waterway, that thin little strip of water between Iran and Oman, is where about a fifth of the world's oil passes through. That includes oil going to South Korea, to Japan, to Europe, which is why the story about South Korea, another Washington Examiner piece today, noting that Seoul refuses to contribute meaningfully to Hormuz security while expecting us to maintain 28,000 troops on their peninsula. That story matters. South Korea wants the security guarantee. They want the nuclear umbrella. They want the troops. They just don't want to do anything that might upset their trading relationship with China. And they don't want to antagonize Iran because their economy runs on cheap oil that flows through that strait. Well, my friends, and I say this gently, that is what we used to call a one-way street. You don't get to demand our protection while sitting on your hands when the thing we're protecting threatens to blow up. Trump threatening Oman, or more precisely threatening Iran through the pressure point of Oman, which is where a lot of the back-channel negotiations have been happening, is not recklessness. It is leverage. And leverage is the one language this Iranian regime has occasionally responded to. When Reagan was elected in 1980, the hostages were released on Inauguration Day, not because Reagan had been nice, because they were terrified of what he might do. These regimes understand one thing. They understand that if there is no cost, there is no constraint. And for 5 decades, with a few notable exceptions, there has been no cost. Now, maybe Trump is bluffing. I don't know. I'm not in the Situation Room. But here's what I do know. The Ayatollahs don't know either. And that uncertainty, that not knowing what this president might actually do, is worth more than 100 diplomatic cables from Foggy Bottom. The American people did not send Donald Trump back to Washington to be diplomatic. They sent him back to be effective. And right now, effectiveness looks like making a regime that has spent 47 years treating America as a punching bag genuinely wonder whether they've miscalculated. Don't doubt me. All right, we've got a few more things to get to before I let you go today, and they are worth your time. First up, and this one is a gem, the sanctuary city mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu. Now, the prompt says I shouldn't name office holders as current fact unless confirmed, and she has been Boston's mayor, so let me just say City Hall up in Boston. ICE, the Immigration Enforcement Agency, put out a notice looking for property owners who might be willing to lease parking space and facilities. Standard government procurement. Standard stuff. And the mayor of Boston has now vowed to hunt down property owners who might be considering doing business with the federal government. Hunt them down. Now, I want you to sit with that for a second. A mayor, a constitutional officer of a city government, is threatening private citizens with exposure and retaliation for the crime of potentially doing business with a federal law enforcement agency, an agency that enforces the laws of the United States. You cannot make this up. And if you could, nobody would believe you. Whatever happened to the cities of refuge just being about not cooperating? We've apparently moved past "we won't help" straight into "we will actively punish anyone who does." That is not a sanctuary city. That is an obstruction city. There is a meaningful legal difference, and I suspect the Justice Department has noticed. Now, while we're on the subject of people in powerful positions doing things they absolutely should not be doing, the House Ethics Committee has opened an investigation into Democratic Congressman Jimmy Gomez of California over alleged inappropriate sexual conduct with a House staffer. Another one. Another one. You know, I have noticed, and this is purely anecdotal, purely observational, that the members of Congress most loudly dedicated to creating safe workplaces and protecting the vulnerable and believing all women tend to have a somewhat, shall we say, complicated personal track record. Allegedly. Allegedly. I always say allegedly. Mr. Gomez is innocent until proven otherwise. I want to be clear. The Ethics Committee is just the beginning of a process. But I will note, because the drive-by media will not note it prominently, that the D after his name is doing a lot of heavy lifting right now in terms of what coverage this gets. If this were a Republican congressman, we would be on day 4 of the wall-to-wall carpet bombing. And last but certainly not least, the WNBA. A mother and daughter attended a game in Atlanta wearing a shirt from a company called XXXY Athletics. If you don't know what that means, think about it for half a second and you'll figure it out. Security personnel told them they had to cover it up. The WNBA has now admitted this was wrong. My friends, the fact that the WNBA had to issue a statement acknowledging that a shirt referencing basic human biology is not a threatening garment, that is where we are. That is the state of things. A shirt with a chromosomal designation, a shirt that says nothing more than what your 9th grade biology textbook said, caused enough discomfort to the powers that be in a women's sports league that they sent security after a mom and her daughter. A mom and her daughter at a women's sports event. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a knife. And to their credit, the WNBA backed down and admitted the security call was wrong. Good. That's the right answer. And it should tell you something. It should tell you that even in the most ideologically captured corners of professional sports, reality has a way of eventually asserting itself. You can't get around chromosomes. You can hold your breath and stamp your feet and send security after mothers, but the X's and Y's don't care. The audience sees it. The audience always sees it. Folks, I want to leave you with something before I hand you back to your afternoon. What we've talked about today, Iran, Boston City Hall going after private citizens, a congressman under ethics investigation, a women's sports league trying to police biology, these are not unrelated. They are the same story told 4 different ways. The story is this: there are people in positions of power, in government, in media, in our institutions, who have decided that their preferences outrank reality, that their ideology outranks the law, that their agenda outranks the truth. And they have been running that play for a long time now, getting away with it, because the referees were all on their side. Well, something shifted, something cracked. It started cracking a while back, and it keeps cracking. You see it in elections. You see it in a president willing to tell a terror regime to raise the white flag. You see it in a sports league having to back down because a mother and daughter wouldn't be pushed around. Small things and big things, but the same direction. The American people are not stupid. They are not confused. They know what a woman is. They know what a border is. They know what it means when a 60-day deadline passes and a terror regime comes away with nothing but a threat in return. And they are paying attention. That is what the drive-by media will never understand. And it is what makes this country worth fighting for. I'm Rick LeBow. This has been Rush Hour. Same time tomorrow if they let us back on.